Hello there, everyone. This is the Resident Traveler. I know it's been a while since I did a live stream. However, I'm sure most of you are going to enjoy what I have planned for tonight. A lot of you know that RE5 is not only my favorite Resident Evil game, but is also my favorite video game of all time. Moreover, Sheva is my most preferred character to play as in the game. So, for this 14th anniversary of RE5, I have here with me Eva La Dare, who did the voice and mocap for the character. Welcome, Eva.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let me just switch to Instagram. There you are.
Hi.
How have you been?
I've been good. I don't know if you know much about the weather here in LA, but we've been a little bit cold and a little bit wet, but we're good. We're not in the drought anymore and everything's green. How are you?
Yeah, in India, especially in Chennai where I live, we have two climates, two seasons, hot and hotter. Occasionally we get rain. Yeah.
Occasionally.
It is really hot. Sometimes you can fry an egg on the roof of a car.
Oof.
Yeah.
I actually love that weather. Sometimes I grew up in Florida, South Florida, so I miss that weather sometimes.
Does it get very cold where you live right now?
It's unusually. It's very unusual that it's this cold. You know, we're usually in the mid 70s and high 60s, but we've had we've had a lot of snow. We've been snowing, right? Like this week has been snow, and you know, hopefully it's going to start to warm up soon. But yeah, this is unusual.
Right. Yeah, we should. I really wish I could experience snow. Maybe sometime in the future when I travel or something, I can experience it.
Oh, you've never seen snow?
I've seen snow in movies and gaming, maybe, but I have
in
never.
movies, but
Yeah,
you've never
yeah, no.
touched or like.
I'm
It's
guessing.
beautiful.
I'm guessing it feels like the walls of a freezer, the stuff that can
It
scrape
can.
off.
It depends on what city you're in.
Okay.
It can.
hmm
And then it can be, you know, fun to fall into and be really soft if you're like snowboarding and then it, you know, there's all different kinds of snow.
Sounds a lot of fun. Does it hurt? Does it hurt when people throw snowballs?
Yeah, it can. I mean, it's you can throw really icy snowballs and you can throw real soft snowballs that just, you know, break apart when they hit you. But yeah, there's all kinds of snow.
It reminds me of the clip from The Office when Dwight gets revenge on Jim with the snowball prank.
Oh, I don't remember that right now.
Have you seen The
Now
Office?
I'm gonna have to look that up. Oh, I've seen The
Oh,
Office,
yeah.
but I don't remember that moment
Oh,
at this
yeah.
moment.
If you just
But
search Dwight Snowball, it'll come up.
oh, come on. All
Anyway,
right.
before we begin, I really gotta ask. Like back when RE5 launched in 2009, I was 18 back then. I remember your name
Yeah.
being Karen Dyer, and so
Yes.
if you don't mind, could you please share the story behind changing your stage name?
Well, I became a spy in 2010. No, I'm joking. I was going by Karen Dyer at the time of the game and when the game came out. So shortly after that, I went through a professional stage name change that was just, you know, there was a lot of personal reasons behind it, but it was just part of my. Well, this is another part of my talent folders here that I also have been in the world of burlesque. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of the people that know me as a burlesque performer. And my burlesque name was Eva La Dare. So I was kind of living a double life already for a while. And, you know, if you saw me at a certain time of the day, I was Eva, and then another time of the day, I was Karen. And at one point, it just got, you start introducing yourself as both people. I just decided I had to choose one, and I chose Eva. So once I went with Eva La Dare, I felt like a lot of things changed. I don't know if it was myself, having a little more permission behind a name, but it just felt like, evolution of my performance career, and it's a natural thing for me now. And I never tell people, you must call me Eva. If someone knows me from 20 years ago and they're going to call me Karen, I'm going to answer to that too. This is just my journey.
Yeah, around I think 3 years ago, when I saw someone by the handle Eva La Dare promoting RE5 week, I was like, "Who is this imposter?" And then I realized, okay, it is actually you, because I've always known you as Karen Dyer.
I know, and that was a little confusing when I first did the change. But over time, I think people have realized, that's why my Twitter handle is Karen Sheva Eva.
Yeah,
it's sort of the progression of who I've become, in my career, and I don't, I'm not ignoring the Karen part of my life. That's what got me here, but it's definitely how it's evolved. It's definitely a symbol of, the change over years. But like I said, when I do autograph signings, I still will sign with both names, because I feel like, at the time that I did Sheva, I was, Karen. So, I never want that to be away from, someone's experience with the game.
So when exactly did you change to Eva La Dare?
I think it was in 2011.
Oh wow!
That it became my official Screen Actors Guild name.
All right.
Because that's where you can change your name, with the union, and then when you start, if you look on IMDb, you will see under like the Eva La Dare, you'll see some credits, and in parentheses it as Karen Dyer. So I figured people are gonna figure it out, and I mean, I it's so funny to me when I come across people that are surprised or like, oh, why would you do that? And I think, how many people, celebrities in Hollywood, go by a name that's not their legal name? It's quite common, but it works for me.
I'm guessing your family calls you Karen?
They do.
Because that's your birth name, right?
That's my birth name. I mean, actually, I have a brother that's named Kevin, so I get called Kevin more than I get called Karen.
Oh,
because it's just, it's, when parents go down the list of all their kids, he gets called Karen and I get called Kevin. So yeah.
My sibling, my older brother who lives in the US, his name is Marbrin, and my parents all often call me Marbrin and him Bhavan. So it happens.
Right. Yeah. It happens, right? So yeah, they don't call me Karen as much as they call me Kevin.
Yeah. All right. So we can move on to the questions part. So
bring them on.
So before I begin, is it Eva or Eva?
Eva.
Eva. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So Eva, were you familiar with Resident Evil as a franchise prior to working on RE5?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's one of the most popular franchises out there. I definitely knew of the games. I had played Resident Evil 4 when it came out. I don't play games on the daily. If you follow me, you know that I play. I always say I like the shooting games, but I would rather shoot the real guns. Or I like the golf games. I play golf a lot, but I'd rather play the real golf. So it's not like I'm sitting all the time in front of my console, playing games. But but I did play Resident Evil 4, which I really liked a lot, and it was so, life is funny when you suddenly pay attention to one thing, then all of a sudden that thing comes into your life, and you know, around that time later that year, the whole experience of Resident Evil 5 would,
Yeah.
fall into my lap. So pretty cool.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Um, is it safe to say that Resident Evil 5 was the first video game you ever worked on?
Yes. Well, no, actually, no.
Okay.
I had been working in mocap, and it was the first lead
Okay.
role I'd
All right.
ever had. I was working in mocap and doing bit parts in different games, like small games. Like people have asked me like, what games have you worked on? And I'm like, half the time I don't know, because half the time I can't know because of all the NDA situation
Mm-hmm.
and code names on projects. So I just got into that habit where I just work on a gig, and if it came out, I'd be like, oh yeah, I think that's me. I think that's me on this game. But because I had started in mocap and got to know some of the people in the production
Hmm.
side, I think that's how my name was able to get thrown into the hat for Sheva.
So these previous games that you mocap for, any idea like were you an NPC or were you like an extra in the crowd of NPCs?
Oh
What were
yeah.
you?
I was not a playable character. It was just really cutscene
Yeah.
character, additional characters. So yeah, Sheva was the first playable lead I'd
Yeah.
ever gotten.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I meant by NPC, non-playable character.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
yeah. Um, so you have absolutely no idea what franchise or what game the title it was before
No,
RE5. Okay.
these were smaller games though. These
Hmm.
were these were because I think at that time, video game the video game industry has changed so much, and it
Yeah.
changes so fast every year. I don't think there were that many large name games being
Yeah.
produced in the U.S. They were still primarily being produced either in Japan or Canada or somewhere else. But so there were a lot of smaller games that I was working on at that time. And then I would think about it. Resident Evil 5 is my first voice,
Okay.
my first time voicing a character.
All right. You did
Yeah.
you did a phenomenal job for the first
Well, thank you.
voiceover. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been working as an actress since I was
Hmm.
10 years old. So, I
Okay.
mean, the acting part I've been doing, but
Hmm.
I had never used my voice to put on a character on a video game before.
Did you transition well from live action acting or like theater acting to voice acting? Did you notice any like major changes, or was just like live action acting but without your face on the camera or like something like that?
Um, it was amazing. I think if you ask any actor that's worked on a video game, they'll tell you how much fun it is, because there's a certain extra freedom that
Hmm.
comes from, I mean, at that point, because now they do mocap and voice at the same time. But at that point, when we were working, they were still separate. So, you know, uh, the voice work, you didn't have to worry as much about how you looked, or you could sort of have more activity to support the voice work. I don't know. There's just a lot of freedom. When you're on camera, everything is being looked at the same time, and but even when you're doing it now and you're doing voice and mocap at the same time, I guess the freedom is in the casting, because there are characters that I've played that I would not be able to play normally in casting. Like I could be a creature, I could be I mean, obviously, there are movies where people are creatures and it's all animated and there's CGI, but those opportunities for people of color, it just opened up,
Yeah.
because anybody could be behind that face or, that voice. Um, yeah, I had so much fun with it. It was like being on a playground. It is like being on a playground, especially when you have a great group of actors to work with. And you mentioned theater. It's become even more like theater now because everything's being recorded at the same time, and you're literally doing scenes, from a play, and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, it's I've never gone to work going, ugh, no, I guess they're gonna do this again. No, it's always like, what's next? Let's do it again. You want to do it again? All right, I'll do it again. Like it's playtime. I can't imagine any actor that doesn't love it.
You mentioned people of color. I can relate to that because I voiced Wesker in the fan remakes of Resident Evil 1. And
Right.
like back when I played RE5, like, I never would have imagined, you know, an Indian man could ever voice Wesker. I mean, even if it's a fan made game, still, I had a lot of fun working on that. Just doing the
Right.
lines and just being a Wesker, like being a bad guy, behind the mic. My mom,
Right.
when I was growing up, she would often tell me like, you argue like a villain sometimes, and now I'm like, I turned that around. I'm like, see, I am actually doing something. I'm a villain in a video game now. Yeah,
Yeah, but you experienced exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah,
As long as the talent is there,
hmm
that was what I loved about the work was that, okay, we're not worried about what my hair looks like. Does my
yeah.
hair fit the character? It doesn't matter. The character's on the screen, and people are going to connect with it as long as the voice work is good. So it's a lot of fun.
You're gonna be wearing like a CGI coat over that anyway, so you can just let loose with your voice work.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So since RE5, you working as a lead in RE5 was a new experience for you. So what was the hiring process for this line of work? Like, did you have to adjust your e- existing schedule accordingly to meet the expectations of this project?
I've talked about that part of the game over the years many times, and
Hmm.
and the one thing I've never said about it is that I felt like I was getting trained to be a spy
Hmm.
because everything was so secretive, but I had to learn so many skills or make sure that I could, do everything that was going to be asked of me. And I just had to kind of go into it blindly trusting a lot of people I didn't know yet that
Hmm.
well, but or because at the time I didn't even know it was Resident Evil 5.
Oh.
So no, I didn't know. Like it wasn't until I I had passed a certain amount of tests, physically, and because in the beginning it was just about testing me for the mocap. So I just knew it was a big game. It was a franchise. There were going to be, weapons and guns and stunts involved,
Hmm.
and so they had me go through a whole training with guns and I got certified with weapons, and I had to, show my physical abilities. My background uh, is that of a professional dancer and a professional circus performer. So I have, a pretty active background, which helped a lot. And they just had to know if I could basically do it. So, but they couldn't tell me what it was. Um, it wasn't until, we started shooting the prevas. They had, they're pretty well known now all over the internet. The behind the scenes of us physically getting dressed up in, our characters' costumes and shooting all the cutscenes for Capcom to make their notes, which is not. I don't know if they've ever done that again on any video game ever, if they ever did that. I know they found it useful to just sort of nail down the story and exactly what was going to work with everything. And there was, Jim Son Zero was the director, and he had come from directing films. So it was the way that he knew how to work and to get everybody where they needed to be character-wise. So that is when I would say that might have been like maybe a month or two after all the training and back and forth of like, okay, now let's have her do this. And once we got to shooting the cut scenes in costume, that's when I got the big book and opened the book and went, oh my God, really? And that's when I found out. So I laugh when I think back at it, because I don't think I've been through any other process, TV or film wise, where I didn't know what the show was when I got to work, but it was like that. I think I was just going along with it because, one, it was really fun and the people were really great. And I don't know, I just had this feeling that it was going to be something special. And it was.
It sounds like you had a lot of fun, and when you opened that book, it must have been a literal eye opener.
Yeah, I still have the book. I know there's probably a lot of people who would love to have this book, because it was basically the whole history of Resident Evil, and the script that was written at the time for the game. And I mean, anything I needed to know about at that time, because Sheva was in constant, they were still working out the kinks to her character. And but as far as the franchise, I mean, it was like this thick binder. I know I have it somewhere. Somewhere.
So you mentioned you had to go through rigorous training for the role. So I would like to dive deeper into that. So I'm guessing you went through like weapons training. Did you also go through any kind of hand-to-hand stunts?
Yeah, I mean, the weapons training was a lot more involved, but there was, because there was such a great group of stunt professionals that were not only in front of camera, but part of the production and the producers as well. Ruben Langdon being one of them, and there were sessions of like just learning how to take a fall, which as a dancer, we fall all the time. I mean, not like to be clumsy, but as part of choreography. So there's, it was good to have, and I've been a clown for, many years, doing circus work. So, pratfalls and stuff like that was, already in my wheel bag. But yeah, hand-to-hand combat, getting more precise about, stuff like that. And then, for the more, because I know people have asked me if I do the in-game fighting. That is not, no, I do not do the in-game fighting. Anything that took place in the cutscenes, I covered. But the in-game fighting, I honestly don't know how much of it is like a stunt team, martial art team, or, animation. But it's, a mixture of both. But I believe, but in the cutscenes, I do all my own stunts.
Okay, so that was actually what I was gonna ask. Like,
Oh,
during gameplay, Sheva has a lot of slick melee moves, like finishers and all that.
I
So I was
know.
wondering if you
I
did
know.
did those as well.
I know in game.
Oh, okay.
Those are her slick moves. I can't claim credit to those slick moves.
Yeah, the somersault, and she has a 4 to 5 combo beatdown against Wesker. That I added
Yeah.
that to the tribute.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I saw that. The combat we have in the cutscene between Chris and Sheva and Wesker,
Yeah.
that we did, and
Oh yeah,
I
that's
think
cool.
it might have been last year. Oh, and even the one with that where Jill is still under, his spell,
Yeah.
and there's that fight scene. We did that one in the cutscenes. I think maybe a bit a couple years back. I might have posted a couple behind the scene
hmm
moments in our video practice of that. Those were fun. Those are always yeah, fun, good
Yeah.
times.
All right, time to check the comments. John Luis Garcia, he asks, did she do the mocap only or both voice and mocap? So, would you like to answer that?
I am, yes, I'd love to answer that. I am the voice and motion for Sheva Alomar. I did both. Um, I said earlier that they hired me for mocap in the beginning, but by the time we got to the end of shooting the cutscene rehearsal, uh, they were at the point of confirming who was going to voice Sheva, and I wasn't really in the running. I wasn't. I think there were, a list of actresses that they were pursuing, and I, kept saying, well, I'd love to give it a try. I'd love to throw my hat in the ring and you know, at least just hear what I can do. Um, in the end, I guess it worked. Happy to say,
So
I
you had
ended
to
up
do a kind of,
going in.
so you had to do some kind of audition for the role.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because like I said, those months of me training were primarily to do the mocap,
Okay.
and I don't know the process that went on behind the scenes for auditioning, and who was up for the role, but um, I, at that point I had done so much work on the character. I thought eh, I know her better than anyone at this point
hmm
because I've been working on it for months, and I had done all the lines in the cutscene rehearsal that was shot. I mean, I knew her better than anyone at that point. So I thought they have to hear, at least, let me audition. Um, and when they did, you know, like I said, I don't know what happened, but I got the call to show up in the booth, and it all went there. From there, it went on.
Chibi in the comments, he says Sheva is the best, so underrepresented, unfortunately. Yeah, I share the same sentiment.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I love her too. I love her.
All right. So you were talking about the stunts that you've done for RE5. What was the most challenging thing you had to do when you mocap for RE5?
Okay, I'm trying to think if it was. So there was a moment where well, it's I guess it's the most dramatic moment for Sheva, at least, when she's hanging on for dear life on the plane
hmm
after she kicks Wesker off her foot.
Yeah.
And, you know, the initial acting part of that in mocap was pretty easy. I have posted pictures from that scene as well in years ago, where I was basically lying on my side on a mat, while you know Ruben is on, for those that don't know, Ruben Langdon was, did the mocap for Chris Redfield. And so that part is easy. That part was great. All the drama, they were pulling, I'm pulling, But there was a moment where to get the actual like body swing back onto the plane, they built a scaffolding pretty high. And I had a harness, and there wasn't, there was a puller to at least get most of my weight, off the ground. But I literally had to like run, jump, grab Ruben's hands, and have him pull me up over the scaffolding. I would say that had to be the hardest thing, the most difficult thing. We did it. I actually was looking at pictures of it. I almost thought to post it today. I might post it later today, but I have pictures from that stunt. And but that, everything else had been things that I was really used to, or comfortable doing. The fight choreography came very natural to me as a dancer. It's a sense of choreography and retaining choreography. And so, the kicks, the punches, the falls, I would have to say that's the first time I ever had to, do a hoisting and, someone pulling me up onto a scaffolding. So, and we did it. We got it done. We did it, a couple of times. But I'm trying to think what else was more difficult than that or challenging. That's the only thing that comes to mind.
So you didn't have any like injury or sprain, strain, anything during this challenging stunts?
Okay, no. And I, other than just, these were long days. They could go pretty long, anywhere between like 12 to 14 hours a day. But you didn't feel it because you were having so much
fun. Yeah.
So the day would go by like this. It would, you would get there when it was dark. You would leave when it was dark. And I also laugh because this is the only time, I think, on other games I've worked on, I've never had to, excuse me if you hear my dog barking, I've never had to do a character for so long in heels so high. Like we had, I don't know, Sheva wears boots, and now as a dancer, I'm used to dancing in heels, so it wasn't an issue. But I just, it was very funny that anything that everybody else was doing, I would had to do in heels. That's, that's the women, we got to do everything in heels. So all those kicks and falls and, being hoisted onto a scaffolding in, high heel boots. Yeah, it was fun. Maybe that was challenging after a long day, but at a certain point I just got used to it. So but the boots all had like little balls on them too, you know, so you're always losing them.
So nothing besides like a sore back and a sore ankle or knee. No injury.
Yeah. I mean, my ankles, as a dancer, I've twisted my ankles plenty of times. Mm-hmm. If I twisted on the game, it was no big deal. I had nothing that made it so that I couldn't go to work or I had to, ice anything. It was just, I needed sleep, because, we went hard for a couple of months. And then we would take a break and then go back and go hard because there was the schedule of the shoot with the costumes and the cutscenes, and then the vocal sessions, and then the real mocap sessions. But by then, like I said, they don't do this anymore. And you can imagine, we knew all our choreography already. We had shot it months before, and we already knew our lines, and because we had done them in 2 sessions, the vocal session and the cutscene rehearsal. So by the time we got to mocap, it was a play, and we were just doing another performance of the play.
So Sheva is left-handed throughout the game, and
Yes, she is.
my theory for her being permanently left-handed in the game will would be for the split screen, like for split screen co-op. Back then, online co-op was not that popular, was not that mainstream.
Right.
So for
Right.
split screen, when someone plays as Chris, their character will be on one side of the screen, and when someone plays as Sheva, since she is left-handed, her character will be on the right side of the screen. So I thought maybe for that symmetry, they used that. Unlike RE6, you can't really switch shoulders in RE5. So what was the reason?
Oh.
So that was my theory. So what was the reason for making her left-handed?
I love your theory. I always assumed it was to make the poster look badass. Because it's that back-to-back partner action. It just reads so much, better than side by side, same hip. But I think it was more about what you're saying now that I hear that. But yeah, I remember now when we were going through the beginning of discussing what I would have to do and as far as the training part, and they said, yeah, so are you lefty or righty? I'm like, oh, I'm right-handed. Like, you think you could? And I work, like I said, I have a background in circus, and I've done a lot of juggling, juggling balls, pins, rings, and so the idea of me having to, work on being, good with guns with my left hand, I was like, yeah, I'm sure it's something I can, work on, and that's exactly what we did. So the whole training with the weapons, with the guns, I never shot with my right, just so that I would never fall into that habit while we shot. Everything I learned with guns is from my left hand, so I actually shoot better with my left hand than my right. It's the only thing I do with my left hand is shoot a gun. I don't shoot guns normally, so don't, let me not say that.
Yeah.
But, when I have gone to the range, I shoot left.
Funny you say that. I'm right-handed as well. I was actually going to ask you, are you left-handed in real life? So thanks for answering that in advance. So due to playing RE5 as Sheva for majority of my playtime with RE5, I've actually gotten so used to the character being on the right side of the screen. So whenever I have to play as Chris or Jill or Josh in Mercenaries or the DLC, for example, it's so hard to get used to the right-handed aiming. I'm so used to playing as Sheva, and it also carried over to real life. Like you would say, like I haven't fired real guns in real life, but I have played around with airsoft and BB guns and all that. So
Right.
when I picked up BB guns and airsoft guns, I actually just subconsciously chose to fire them with my left-handed stance, because Sheva made such an impression in my head.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, I write with my right hand and do most of my tasks with my right hand. But when it comes to shooting, it's left-handed.
And it's crazy. I don't think there's anything else I do left-handed.
I would say, when we are just chilling in the classroom, I would spin a book on my finger.
Okay.
That I would do with my left hand.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Special Skills. You got some circus skills too.
Yeah. So, all right, let's check more comments. Chibi again says, can you please do a voice scene from the game for us? Maybe the last scene against Wesker. That will happen towards the end of the interview, Chibi. And I don't think Wesker and Sheva really have scenes against each other. That's actually a part of the questionnaire. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
Anyway, so moving on, I'm gonna ask more questions regarding characters of RE5, including yourself, Sheva Alomar, that is. So, who was your favorite character in RE5 besides yours, and why?
I liked Excella.
Oh yeah.
I liked her a lot. Nina Farah plays her and she was one of the, because I think out of the characters on the game, I think only myself and Nina did both voice and mocap for our characters. And I might be wrong about. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. There are smaller additional characters. TJ Storm did voice for his and did mocap for his as well. So scratch that. But yeah, I just thought Excella was a great villain. I
If you think
loved
about it, if you
that.
think about it, sorry, okay, go ahead.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
So if you think about it, Excella is actually Wesker's sugar mommy
Yeah, right.
because she funded his research and all of that, and then he, like the shady villain he is, he just backstabbed her. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that's just
And
Wesker.
I just thought she was smart. She was badass. She was
Yeah,
sexy.
yeah,
You know, I mean, yeah. I just loved her vibe. And I also, uh, oh gosh, why am I? Well, yeah, I'm like getting flashbacks now. 14 years later, I'm like, it's been 14 years. It's crazy.
So Excella Gione is your favorite character besides yourself.
Gianni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did,
I'm gonna
did,
keep it female.
did they ever mention what her nationality or like background was? I think she was Italian. I'm not sure what country she was from.
I thought she was actually from Spain. I don't know why I thought that. I thought it was definitely Spanish.
Because I thought Gione sounded like more Italian than
Gioni does sound Italian.
Yeah.
You're right. But for some reason at the time I thought it was, I could be wrong. It wasn't. I mean, I loved how Nina played her. But I thought she was, I thought Excella was Spanish, but Gione, you're right.
All right. So I'd like to delve into the background of Sheva as a character. So Sheva lost her parents at a young age, and so did Chris. So even though neither of them discussed about this in any of their cutscenes, do you think this could have helped them connect on a deeper level if they knew about it as they took down Wesker?
It's funny. At the time we were doing, well, because Sheva was still developing as a character, so at the time that we started working on the game, it would have been helpful to know that parallel between them. I don't think I was aware of it then. It's funny how much I'm learning through the fan base about Sheva now. And I don't know, I don't know how much comes from the franchise or is, just kind of being developed over social media. But yeah, I think that would have been or would have made for another, emotional connecting scene between the two of them. I mean, they were already connecting on so many levels as far as, wanting to save people that were close to them or avenge people close to them. So they definitely were together on intent, and just being good soldiers, but yeah, I wasn't aware that Chris had lost his parents at a young age.
Yeah, he looked after his younger sister Claire from a very young age. So he took on like the role of a father from a very young age. So I think that's what some of these questions are from like a gaming forum called BioHaze. I posted a year ago, back in March 2022, I think. Um, if people could chip in questions besides the one that I already wrote down, and this
Mm-hmm.
question is from BioHaze. So yeah, like you said, you you do tend to know more about the character through fans, later on through discussions and interviews.
Yeah, because there's so much. I mean, the world of Resident Evil is so huge.
Yeah.
Uh,
So Chibi again, he made another comment. He says Sheva's left-handed because she has high IQ. I think Sheva's clearly smarter than Chris.
oh,
That-
oh, well,
that's a
yes,
good theory.
yes. I like that theory. I like that theory.
When you get,
We'll go with that one.
yeah, Sheva was 23, 24, I believe, in RE5, and Chris was already 35. I think being beaten up by monsters in Wesker for so long could have affected his thinking a little bit. We never know.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. He's been through a lot. Um,
Have you
yeah.
played?
I mean, even when he's. Oh, no, go ahead.
So yeah, have you played Code Veronica?
No. Wait. Not like in my. Oh, for some reason, I feel like at some con I might have played, or I might have. I think I. Why does it feel like I played at Comic Con at a Capcom event? Capcom event. I think they were. Nah, I mean, I don't know. It seems very familiar that I might have played it at Comic Con.
So like RE1, Code Veronica, RE5, and then Revelations 2. That would be the Redfield versus Wesker saga. And at the end of Code Veronica, Chris gets the shit beaten out of him by Wesker. And that's actually a canonical
When
reason. That's the canonical reason why Chris got so huge and buff in RE5. If he were to face Wesker again, he wants to be prepared.
But he really hasn't been that buff since, has he?
I think in RE8 he's still buff, but he's just not that huge. Like he's more proportionate. In RE5, his triceps and
It was.
biceps
I mean.
were bigger than his head. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Wesker really did a number on him. So he just he did 8-hour workouts every day, pretty much.
Yeah, P90 X CrossFit, definitely CrossFit. Call him CrossFit Chris.
So I have a funny question next. I don't know if this is just in my head, but
Oh.
when I was doing the edit for the tribute for Sheva, I noticed Sheva taking a peek at Chris multiple times during the cutscenes, and I know that the writers at Capcom, they have a rule to not show explicit romance in Resident Evil. They actually have that rule. So was this a subtle way to show that Sheva has some form of admiration towards Chris?
I mean, the admiration, because I mean, during that time, I really felt like, wow, they're not playing this for romance at all. I think, I don't know. I mean, not that, men of a certain age can't date younger women, but I felt like she was being treated by the other characters as someone so young for what she was doing that it never crossed over into romance. And I think the admiration is respect. Like there's just of what they go through together on this journey, they have to trust each other and they don't know each other. So I think, at least from my point of, playing Sheva. The fact that somebody would, help me with my agenda, and the moment we become partners, and it's a partnership that is not based on sex, it becomes even more special, because it's like, and I think that was so evident in the scenes, in the characters. So it was almost like, okay, we're not going to play that card, and now you can take us even more seriously. Now you can even believe us more. Now you can pay attention to the game. I mean, if they were going to get it on, I don't think it would kill the game, but I think it's kind of cool that they didn't. And I never got the feeling, hey, go look at him, and I mean, sure, I think if there's love, it's like, two soldiers having each other's back kind of love, like they're willing to die for one another. That's a different kind of love.
The kind of wholesome love that would blossom through respect and admiration, and not just through, attraction.
Right.
Yeah. And you mentioned admiration. In her email to Pierce Nivens in RE6, you can tell that Sheva deeply admires Chris. She also, respects Chris. Because she mentions that he was a very important part of her life, or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, most likely it was, since she lost her parents at a young age, she likes to I guess look up to a focused soldier type men, just like how she looks up
Yeah.
to Josh as well.
With Josh, exactly. That was very much a brother sister type of relationship.
Yeah. So Shannon, she asks, what are your thoughts on Jill Valentine, and would you like to team up with Jill as Sheva in a new game?
Hell yeah!
Yeah.
I mean, that would be awesome. I think now is a great time for that kind of game, I mean, I'm not against it. Not against it at all.
Yeah, I made
That'd be
multiple
badass.
posts. I made multiple posts, featuring Sheva and Jill. I would call them, best girls of Resident Evil.
Awesome. Yeah, and bring back Patricia to do it. Patricia Ja Lee.
Oh yeah, Patricia is
I
my
mean,
favorite Jill voice actress, like easily. She
oh,
she just added so much depth to the character, even though her
yeah.
screen time in RE5 was small. She just added a lot of personality to that character.
She did.
I hear only Patricia after playing RE5. All the other actors that came after that, they were pretty good too. But like how Kevin Conroy was for Batman, I just hear Patricia Ja Lee. I heard she was in Power Rangers or something before that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, she's part of two huge franchises. I mean, more involved in the beginning with Power Rangers, but yeah.
And they both are Japanese. I heard? I think Power Rangers is Japanese. Not sure.
I do believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Coincidence.
she's badass, man. She's badass.
So the next question is a difficult one.
Oh, okay.
I remember there being allegations of racism against the game when the first trailer dropped back in 2007. I also remember
Right.
Sheva was not in that trailer. Some fans say her character was created mainly to counter such allegations, but I've also read that she was always part of the script to begin with, and that she probably got more screen time than she had before due to the allegations. That is what I believe in. So, as there are conflicting theories about this issue, would you kindly clarify it for the fans?
Well, I can clarify what I know. I can't be the ultimate answer of what really was happening behind the scenes. But from my point, I know, obviously once the game came out, that was a huge question I was asked all the time. And I guess all I could say about it is that once those first trailers came out, I was already, I believe I was, or I mean, because I started training in 2007, and the game hadn't come out till 2009.
Yeah.
So a lot of those trailers came out while I was working on the game and couldn't say anything because all the NDAs. So I already knew, okay, she's not coming out of nowhere. I'm already working on her,
Yeah.
So there's that. And at that time, I was being trained to do what I did in the game. So I find it hard to believe that this is a last minute, oh, let's just give her more stuff to do, or just let's make her a character, when nothing that I was working on seemed small or, like it was just additional. She was fully engaged in the story, in the body of the whole game, and the renderings. I mean, I was already wearing the costume in 2007. Developed at that point, just not shown in the trailers. I do remember when they showed the first trailer that, and this was something interesting. In the first trailer, the setting is Africa, and so what you saw was a white man in Africa killing a lot of people that were African. And yeah, that wasn't probably a great look. And then I think, okay, when I played Resident Evil 4, oh, wait, are you still there? Did we lose you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you're there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, train of thought. So, when that trailer came out, and it was, you have Chris Redfield shooting a lot of, people in Africa who were African. Yeah, there was an uproar. It did not look good at all. I know that was one thing I saw that changed. That in the trailers that came out after that, they diversified the people that were, infected and getting shot. And then I thought about Resident Evil 4, which was in Spain, and you've got Leon, and obviously it's a much more darker game aesthetically. Everything takes place at night.
Yeah.
So, I am not giving anybody an excuse, but I'm thinking in their head, they're like, we're in Africa, so there would be Africans there. Now, I think that's what happened in that first trailer. I can only assume. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what was thinking behind the scenes. But they definitely changed that trailer later on to have it more diverse. And then in the later trailers, when you finally did see Sheva, I believe all of that was to be a tease. I don't think the first trailer without her was because she wasn't existing. I think she hadn't been fully, or they were still working on her, because I was literally working on her. And, it became a tease. Every trailer after that was a little bit of her, maybe her voice, maybe her, until you got, to the trailers that we saw right before the game coming out, where it was, everything was fully, introduced. But yeah, it was a little dicey, those first couple of trailers. But my feeling about that, because people were mad there were certain people who were really upset. And all I kept thinking was, they're shooting in Africa. They are learning how to do this. It's a whole other culture trying to include another culture that they probably don't understand as well as their own, and they're just trying to do right by it. I didn't feel anything malicious was happening behind the scenes. I feel like, hello, I could not be happier for them to include a female of color as one of their first. It's the first time, and I don't know if it's the only time, that they have a female of color as a playable character.
You're correct.
But
Sheva, I would say, is the only protagonist that is a person of color. There is Carlos, but he's not a protagonist. He's more of a deuteragonist. But I would say Sheva is the only POC protagonist in all of Resident Evil.
and I mean, that's a huge undertaking for them. I mean, at that time, back then, I mean, we're seeing it so much more now. It's not a, but for, like I said, I never felt like they were coming from anywhere racist. I think they wanted to know how to do it because they wanted to do it. And if mistakes were made along the way, they did their best to learn and make it right. So, I could not be more grateful to have had that opportunity to or for other, gamers that are of color and are female to see and be able to play that character and have the opportunity to be Sheva. Like, but was it perfect? Maybe not, but I do hope that it didn't scare them off. I hope that it's something that they try to do again.
So if Capcom were to remake RE5, just like how they remade RE1, 2, 3, do you
Yes.
think do you think there would be the same kind of reaction? Like
Do I think that? Well, I thought you were going to ask me would I want to do it, and the answer to that question is hell yeah. But to the question you ask, in the world we live in, everyone's going to say something about everything. But I don't think that should be the reason not to do it. And like I said, there are now a lot more games with, playable, characters of color. And there's always going to be someone. There's always going to be a group. There's always going to be, not happy with the final product. But it's important that we do it. Because if we keep saying, we don't want to upset anybody, then we're not going to see. We're just not going to see anybody else coming out and portraying these characters.
It's going to be like making a game while also walking on eggshells.
I mean, I think even outside of the video game world, even in film and television, it is a daily struggle now creatively to, there's no show that makes everyone happy except for, maybe Ted Lasso or something.
Kids shows, maybe.
Even kids shows, people will have issues of whether kids should watch this or watch that, or, I don't think there's anything that could, avoid that kind of criticism.
The reason why I asked about RE5 remake being done now is that due to the smartphone era we live in now, a lot of things happen quite quickly. So people also get offended, or they cancel people quickly as well now. So that's why I was wondering if Capcom will take that, since they already faced that controversy back 16 years ago. Now it could be that controversy could probably be stronger. The reaction could be stronger. They may pull through with it, but I was just wondering if they would they would just remaster it or not do it at all. But yeah, I would love an RE5 remake.
I mean, the remakes that they're doing, they're running out of remakes. The one that's left is 5.
Yeah.
Or at this point. So sure, maybe that there's a reason for them, to be hesitant about it. But I think now is even a better time to do it than, or I wouldn't say, easier time. It's more embraced.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of when the game came out in 2009, I'm not sure everybody wanted to play it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure everybody wanted to play a Sheva, aside from the AI issues. But I think now there would be an audience hungry to play a female of color as a protagonist. Hungry. You'd be feeding in a whole audience that would be ready to take it. Doesn't mean, yeah, I don't, other games are doing it. I don't hear any issues that were shutting or canceling a game down. Besides, the video game industry is probably the biggest industry in all of entertainment. So that
Yeah.
would be pretty hard to shut down. It'd be pretty hard to shut down Resident Evil as a franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Unless
Sure.
they were doing something so malicious and so ignorant, which, like I said, they do their homework. They do their, yeah. And I don't. If it was a blind mistake, sure, but it would have to be pretty malicious for like a boycott to happen, and it would be like, okay, shut it down. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a better time to do it.
You mentioned Sheva's AI. I've mentioned this in my page often. Sheva or Chris, the partner AI is actually not as bad as a lot of people claim it to be. I've done my research on this. So it's like
Yeah.
the AI actually has its own progressive learning system. And like unlike the AI in RE6, where the AI just sticks to you like shadow and just pretty much mimics what you do, and it's damn near invulnerable. It has its own ammo. It doesn't take much damage and all that. But as Sheva's AI, you can actually train it to be much more efficient. So when a lot of players are complaining about the AI, they just did not do much with experimenting on the progressive learning system it has. So if you complement the AI's headshots, it'll become a better marksman, and if you tank it while it revives you, it'll become a better medic. And
Get out.
yeah, and the accuracy of the AI is really really good. The shooting, I mean. So if you give it just one weapon, one precision based weapon like a handgun or an assault rifle or a sniper, depending on the encounters, it is pretty much like John Wick. You have John Wick on your side. So I've played the game solo on professional difficulty several times. Like I've lost count, and the AI partner is way better than the average random player that joins you in your professional playthrough. So yeah, I've defended the partner AI in RE5 all the time, and a lot of people who play RE5 a lot, they also know about this. It's just the people. It's similar to people complaining about Ashley in RE4. So if you keep hearing Leon
Right.
help so many times, it is the game telling you to defend the objective through expository dialogue. So if you're pretty good at defending Ashley, you won't hear Leon help all the time to the point where you're annoyed by the character. So pretty much get good.
That is awesome. I love that 14 years later, I'm just learning about that. And I've met many other people listening to the interview. That's awesome. And that makes me feel like, because I obviously have heard a lot, towards me about the AI. And it's fine. People are playing the game, they get frustrated. I don't take it personally, obviously. But how you just explained it is more like a real life situation. than having the perfect partner
Yeah.
do everything the perfect way.
Yeah.
So it it it's sort of a real life setup.
Yeah.
And if you can get good at that, and like you said, and be encouraging at the same time, you can do really well with it. That's awesome.
Yeah. The more you know. So yeah,
The
next
more you
time
know.
someone um, talks about, it's not like the AI doesn't have any problems at all. It is a game from
Right.
2009, so the Capcom was new to having a fully co-op based game at that time.
Right.
So there are some glitches and bugs, but the kind of complaints that a lot of people make, where they basically say that the partner AI is brain dead, that's not true. You gotta get better at coaching the AI pretty much, and understanding the strengths of the AI. If you optimize your playthrough around the strengths of your partner's AI, you'll have a much smoother experience. And
Wow.
we have more comments.
Okay.
Alexander, what's the con? Okay, I need to reread that. What is the concept story of Sheva during development of RE5? I'm guessing he's asking about
The concept story.
like the lore behind Sheva. I
Oh, the
think,
lore.
yeah.
I mean, the basic story that was given to me was that obviously her parents dying in that accident, uh, caused by uh, Wesker, and um, after the parents die, she was sent to Europe. Now, this is where I have heard different stories since the game has been out, because the question about the accent often comes up. Um, so that she was sent away to live with other family in Europe, sort of being passed around. Um, Her training was in Europe once she decided to become a part of BSAA, and that's where she, gets trained with Josh, and she comes back. Now, when the game, at time of the game, I think she's only been back for, a short while, and she's seeing what's going on there. So, um, that is basically the simple story of her travels. Um, but then I've heard, and I now I can't get really the specifics in my head, that there, um, some alternate backstory of her having stayed in Africa, possibly a little longer than that. Um, but that's where we had, that's where I had to work with when I was on the game.
Right. So yeah, this is pretty much what's out there in like Capcom wiki and all that. Yeah. So Alexander has another question. Does Eva La Dare voice Sheva Alomar in Dead by Daylight?
No, I do not.
I could
Uh,
tell.
I mean, I found out, of her being added to that game when everybody else did, and I mean that's to be expected. We're not, it's we know as voice actors that we can get replaced with another actor if the character has another appearance in another game or project. So, and after 14 years, you know, um, I'm just happy that she, you know, shows up again. I don't know the actress who voiced her. I know it's not as extensive as Resident Evil 5, but yeah, no, I didn't work on that.
Yeah, I could tell straight away it was not your voice because Pretty much all the dialogues of Resident Evil 5 are, deeply ingrained into my head. Like I know the game like the back of my hand.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I can
Shannon
tell.
asks, Shannon asks, while getting into the character, did you ever create or listen to? Did you ever create and listen to playlists that you think Sheva would have listened to? If so, would you be able to
Oh,
share some music that Sheva likes?
that's a. I gotta
It's a deep
see.
question.
You, it is a deep question, and it's. I might have had a couple of songs in my prep because around that time I was very much into doing that. Uh, like creating whole playlists for characters that I was working on, and so it seems like something that I probably did do. And I feel like a song is coming to mind. Let me think on that because I know there was a gosh, there's like music that you haven't listened to in like 10, 15 years, and then like I've come across that lately. I have a lot of vinyl, and when I come across a song that I hadn't heard in a long time, I would not have thought of that song, and it opens up a whole you know file of memories. Um, I feel like I would have done that, but I can't think of any specific songs right now.
Jalen Rita, she says, okay, I'm guessing that's a she. I apologize if it's not. Um, she says, "You've impacted my life in such a good way. I'm a huge
Oh,
fan, and I even picked up voice acting because of it."
oh wow, fantastic!
Indeed.
That's awesome. Oh wow. Oh wow, I'm touched. That is so sweet. Well, keep doing it. If you love it, keep doing it. Keep practicing. Um, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Speaking of voices, I have another question, and before we continue to check the comments, um, this is related to the difficult question I asked earlier about Sheva's screen time being altered. Wesker
Oh yeah.
barely acknowledges Sheva in the script of the final game. He refers to the closest he has come to, referencing Sheva is when he collectively addresses Sheva and Chris as you two. Like, for example, he says something
Well, yeah.
like won't you two tire of failing in your mission? You've really become quite an inconvenience for me.
That's really good.
Thank you. But he never talks to her
uh,
directly. His eyes were all set on Chris. Was this a result of Sheva's screen time being altered after the allegations, maybe?
I had never noticed that till you brought it up.
Yeah, he never talks
Yeah,
to her
I
directly. He only
he never
refers
talks
to
to her directly.
them as you two. Never, like, towards the end when they are about to fall off the jet. He says,
Yeah,
I'm taking the two of you with me. So these are the two instances where he acknowledges the presence of Sheva. Until then, he barely sees her.
yeah, I never noticed that until now.
Sheva has a lot of things to say about
And
Wesker, but Wesker doesn't really say much about Sheva.
well, I don't. I mean, now this would be me in 2009, sort of justifying it to say, okay, well, I know what he's done to me. He probably didn't even know who I was because he was just doing whatever he was doing. Like
Yeah,
I've got my eye on the villain, and the villain has got his eye on something else,
on genocide, pretty much.
on genocide. So I don't think I become a concern for him, but it is interesting, like because his beef and his history is with Chris.
Yeah,
So I understand his attention on Chris and Jill. Um, but even for him to go, well, who are you? Would have been interesting, right? So, because obviously I'm there, so or Sheva's there, so uh, it's an interesting point. Um, it never occurred to me. Uh, I just thought it was him being an asshole, I guess.
Yeah, Wesker has
But
this.
it's
Have you played the original or like watched a playthrough of the original Resident Evil 1 from 1996?
no.
Towards the end, so this is where the beef between, or the beef Wesker has against Chris pretty much started. So when Wesker is showing or presenting this big monster, the tyrant, to Chris at gunpoint, Chris, like the macho soldier guy he is, he doesn't even care that Wesker has him at gunpoint. He just laughs at Wesker. He calls him pathetic, pitiful. This is this is the thing you want to show me. Like, this is your savior and all that. And Wesker's feelings, they actually get hurt. Like, Wesker says, Chris, stop it, stop laughing. So Wesker has been, Wesker has had a huge, like, pardon me, a hate boner for Chris since then.
Wow.
Yeah,
All of this because of that?
yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, he's got issues.
It's also like Chris and Sheva, they have a conversation when they're walking down the tanker, and
Yeah.
Sheva asks him, like, you must have done something to really piss him
Really
off.
piss him off.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Chris says it goes a bit beyond, but he doesn't tell her exactly. I think that's what
Yeah.
he's referring to, because the tyrant ends up killing Wesker and not Chris. So he's even more pissed. Like, this guy had the
Okay,
balls
well
to,
that
yeah, this guy had the balls to laugh at
yeah.
me about my work, and then my work ends up killing me instead of Chris. So he's just, pretty
That
much wakes
probably
up.
didn't.
Wesker pretty much wakes up screaming Chris.
Well, I think that also answers the question you asked why Sheva doesn't even come to mind. Although, like I said, it is a little odd, at least at some point, for him to even question who the new person is.
Yeah, the thing is,
But yeah.
he grabs her, beats her up, manhandles her throughout
Oh
the
yeah.
cutscenes, but he does not really
Yeah.
acknowledge her presence much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
I get why he's obsessed on Chris. It's funny.
Alexander, again, he asks, are there any differences between the older beta concepts version of Sheva and the one that we have in the final?
Uh,
Like, were you exposed to Sheva's development as a character, visually and um, in writing?
I mean, I could only imagine. I mean, I did not see, like I said, what was going on in Japan at the offices at Capcom. But changes in her uniform or her hair, like it was all very about the design. That I remember there being design changes, whether her ponytail was going to be little or poofy or like just not much beyond that. And I know not much changed about her backstory from the time I got to learn about it to the time we got to finish the game. Um, and I think too, because we had all that time doing the cutscene shoot and the voice work and into the mocap, we got to add as we were going. You know what I mean? Like, we got to learn more. Any questions we had. Jim Song Zero, the director, was really building with Capcom along the way, and so a lot of that I feel happened over the year that we worked on the game as well. It wasn't all like settled the moment I started working on it. I mean, they didn't even know that I was going to voice it when I started working on it. So even that changed, So and maybe that, brought something different that they hadn't seen. whatever I was, adding to Sheva. Um, yeah. That's
So we're gonna move on to. So I guess I hope that answers your question, Alexander. So we're gonna move on to like the visual, the visual aspect of Sheva. So when I look up Sheva's face model on Google, I
yeah.
get you, Eva La Dare, and Michelle Vanderwater. What's interesting is
Yes.
that both of you look a lot like Sheva. So, what was the process? Did they combine your features to make this CGI model?
I wish I knew the answer to that. What I do know is that the pictures of Michelle were taken before I started working on the game. So I remember when I got to, you know, even during like the training, there were pictures of face models um, for all the characters. I know Nina was the face model for her character for Excella. Um, and yeah, Michelle's was there. Um, for what happened from that point to when the game came out, I'm not sure. Um, I see parts of me in her. I do. I see parts of Michelle as well. I mean, but that answer has never been, you know, the answer we know for sure. She shot the face model work, and I worked on the voice and the motion. Um, but yeah, I don't know the, you know, if if I've never heard from them where they said, "Hey, we took your nose and put it on," I never heard anything from their side, Although I will fight to say that that's my butt. um, there's a side by side video of that beginning scene, the very, very first scene when she introduces herself. And that, I mean, when I see it, I'm like, yeah, that's my walk, that's my butt, that's my butt. That I can say, you know, um, or I'll claim the butt.
Yeah.
But I can't claim how much, if any, that, you know, of my face made it to Sheva's.
I guess it all boils down to how the artistic direction was for the old RE games. For the RE engine games of today, they do a full photo scan of the face model, and then the mocap is done mainly for the body. But if you look at
Yes.
RE5, even Chris looks like a combination of three faces. Like you have Matt Mullins, who's the main
Mm-hmm.
face model for Chris. Also, he was also the face model for RE1 remake and the Chronicles games, I believe. And then you have Roger Smith. I think he also has
Yeah.
done some of the facial capture. And then you have the
Yeah.
stunt work done by Ruben Langdon. So I think they
Yeah.
combined these three faces and added some creative artistic touch to arrive at the final face. Whereas that's not the case with the R engine games now. It is a shot for shot, like photo scan of the face model,
Yes.
and you have a mocap done
Yes.
by the voice actors, pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really hard to say because they were looking at my face for a long time. I mean, from 2007. Um, but yeah, hard to answer that question, you know, precisely.
So Alexander has one more question.
All right, Alexander.
The red tattoo on her arm, on Sheva's arm, does that mean anything?
Oh man, and I'm gonna forget now. And I know all the fans are going, "You don't know." Right now, I
I think I know what it means,
slips
but
my.
we'll
But
see.
no, you tell me now. I did know what it meant. But at this second, I cannot remember. What did it mean?
Warrior. Yeah, I heard
Is that
it says warrior in Swahili or some other African language.
okay?
Like Shuja, like the way it's written, it sounds like Shuja or something like that. But I heard it means
Yes.
warrior. And
Yeah.
Shannon says Wesker only has room in his brain for three things: Chris, Jill, and taking over the world, becoming a god.
I'm telling you, this man was obsessed. This man was on a mission. Like, it didn't even occur to me that he wasn't, you know, what does it remind me of? When you have, like, so was Sheva. Sheva was obsessed about Wesker. So, he wasn't aware of her, of what he'd done to her life. But you bring up a good point. If somebody new is standing there, you would at least go, and who are you? But
I don't know if Sheva was obsessed with Wesker because she only hears about the character after Chris tells her about it. I think she was obsessed with bioterrorists and bioorganic research,
well, she was
affecting.
obsessed about finding out what happened to
Yeah,
her
yeah,
parents,
yeah.
and Wesker being a part of that. I
Hmm.
mean, she was that's how I mean it to be that her obsession was avenging her parents' death
Yeah, and
and
stopping bioterrorism and
the stop of
yeah,
bioterrorism. In this, yeah, at the same time, and once she figures that he's
he's the
the
face. He's the
person,
face of all
he's the
this.
face of it,
Yeah,
and he's behind it, you know, she's got to do what she's got to do. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting point. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still thinking about that. But yeah, he's only got enough space in his brain for three things.
yeah, and he even rejects, like Shannon says, he even rejects Excella's advances. Like she is pretty much like a goddess who is willing
I
to
mean,
fund his research, and he just pushes her away. This man is devoted to destroying Chris and the
I
world.
mean, I mean, yeah, like he's not. Nobody's having sex in this game.
Yeah,
Anybody have sex in these games?
it's only implied. Like when someone is a husband and wife and they have a child, like Ethan and Mia, and also Barry has a daughter. So it's
Okay.
implied, but there's no explicit romance. They have a strong rule to not show
Yeah,
that.
and I think that's also part of the culture.
Of Japan,
Um, yeah,
even anime, like I don't know if you watch anime, but a lot of animes are kind of like that as well.
yeah, I have.
Yeah. So you've already answered this question. It was about Sheva's accent. Like unlike the other West African characters such as Josh and Doug from the DLC,
Right.
she doesn't sound West African. She sounds more like a British African per se. You've answered that already. So I gotta ask, were you inspired by any existing character or artist when you prepared for the portrayal of Sheva?
Um, it's funny that yesterday, was it yesterday or maybe the day before, somebody on Twitter had mentioned, and I ended up retweeting it, that they were playing Resident Evil 5 this week, and it occurred to them that uh, Sheva would have made a good Tomb Raider. Because I think that was in my mind during the making of this game. You know, um, I don't have anything to do with the design of the outfit, but the outfit certainly screams Tomb Raider. Um, the physical abilities, the whole, that was, Angelina Jolie. Yeah, I
And
think I was definitely
Sheva technically did raid a few tombs.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think that was a strong influence. Um, I'm trying to think, like, you know, what's been so great since the games come out that you know, we've had Wonder Woman, we've had, you know, Charlize Theron doing, you know, Atomic Blonde. We've had, you know, so many female-led action films that I think back then were not happening or popular or being supported by any audience. And it's great that it's sort of becoming normal, I would like to say. Um, so yeah, with very few uh, examples to pull from, Angelina Jolie was definitely one of them.
So if they made an adaptation of RE5, like a live action adaptation, either a Netflix series or a movie,
Well,
besides
they did. Well,
Sheva wasn't in it.
didn't they? Sheva wasn't it. She's never in it, but yeah, she wasn't in it.
They borrowed, so the fourth Paul Anderson movie, they borrowed some elements from RE5, but
I
like
saw that.
mainly the enemies. But I don't think RE5's story was ever adapted um, into the live action. The closest we have is the latest Netflix series, which
Yes.
takes place in an alternate universe after RE5. Like RE5 did happen in that universe, but it's a separate what if universe. So if they made an adaptation of RE5 live action, besides you, who do you see portraying the character?
Oh well. I, I don't. I mean, she's a very busy woman, but I would see Rihanna.
I did, I did see Rihanna when I first started playing the game, and I saw the way Sheva carried herself. I was like, she kind of reminds you of Rihanna with a gun. But then, obviously, she's
Yeah.
a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. I mean, that comes to mind. I mean, there's so many amazing uh, women of color
If you have to stick
getting.
to actresses like Rihanna, she doesn't have much acting experience. If you had to pick from
Okay.
actresses, who would you pick?
Okay. Oh, I'm not. Yeah, she's. I'm gonna still include her as an actress.
Hmm.
But if there was someone that is uh, more physically fitting, oh, Zoe Saldana,
Hmm. Yeah, she does look a lot like Sheva.
right?
Yeah,
And you know she's active. She I remember Colombiana. She can throw down. Um,
yeah, she reminded me of Sheva in that Colombiana, especially with the rocket
yeah,
launcher.
right.
Yeah.
You know that would work. Um, there's a lot. I mean, I'm just so happy seeing my fellow actresses of color like having all these great opportunities now, and it's just it seems to be growing more and more, and so there's a lot of you know um, up and coming talent that would be good as well.
Have you heard
And
of
as they start,
Paula Patton?
go ahead. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I actually worked on a movie with her. I worked
Okay.
on Idlewild.
Yeah, she is my pick
Yeah, one of
for
her.
Sheva. If they made a live action,
She would be good
yeah,
too. She would be good. I haven't seen her do as much action. I know she did
Mission Impossible 4.
the Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise.
And also, I haven't seen the movie, but World of Warcraft, I think she plays one of the
Oh, I
characters in
haven't
that.
seen that one.
Yeah.
Okay, haven't seen that one. Um, there's so many. Ooh. Oh. Zendaya.
Zendaya?
Zendaya.
Oh, the one from Spider Man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She would actually be like good for even like a prequel of Sheva, like, when she was starting up
Well,
in BSAA and all that.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, I think she actually would be the perfect age.
yeah. She's quite young,
Because
so she
she's in
can,
her 20s.
yeah.
She's in her 20s, right?
Yeah.
I thought she was in her 20s. Um, I would love to see if they do bring, or a remake, or you know, another sequel to RE5 to see where Sheva is now, because it would be so cool to find out how she's come along in life
There's a lot of
and what she.
there's a lot of things. There's a lot of new plot points you can explore with Sheva. Have you heard of Billy Cohen from RE0?
No, I don't know.
So Billy is the main male character in Resident Evil Zero, who partners with Rebecca Chambers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Billy has a past that is set in Africa, and so I was wondering if Capcom could connect the dots between Billy and Sheva. Billy's a lot older than Sheva.
Ah,
Like he's around Chris's age, and
okay.
if he had a past where he denied orders, which he denied some orders where he had to do some shady things for Umbrella or something, and he denied that. So he got framed for doing some kind of crime because he denied those shady orders. So
Right.
if they could relate Billy's African past with Sheva's parents being killed, and they could have, at first they could probably have some opposition because Sheva would assume that he was involved with the people who killed her
Right.
parents, but eventually she'll find out that he was actually framed. So they could do a lot of things with
I
the
like
plot
that.
points that are not addressed. And Shevak and Joel could also team up because they seem they seem to gel well, from what I've seen. And so this question you've also answered vaguely. Like we are pretty close to RE4 remake. If and when Capcom remakes RE5, I'm sure you'd be happy to reprise your role.
I would be happy if they were to ask. I
I
would be
hope they
down.
do. Yeah.
But like I said, I've seen it happen. A lot of voice actors have seen it happen in this business where, I mean, even Roger, Craig Smith, who was Sonic and then wasn't Sonic and then was Sonic. Like, you just kind of have to go with the flow, you know, and hope for the best.
Yeah. Besides Sheva, are there any other characters you're proud of portraying? It could be gaming, movies, series, anything.
Ooh, wow. Ha. Huh. Wow. My whole life flashed before my eyes. Well, Sheva is definitely one of the characters I'm proudest of. I
You portrayed some character in Street Fighter, I believe. I forgot the name.
Yes, Elena,
Oh yeah.
Elena, and I'm proud of Elena too. It's not as extensive of a story as RE5, but she's the happiest fighter I know. She's a very sweet character.
What year did you work on Elena in Street Fighter?
I worked on it a couple times. I want to say, ooh, around 2013 and like maybe between 2011, 2014, between those years. I think there were like several different versions um, of the game uh, that I got called in to do. And yeah, I mean, nothing, I mean, there was no mocap involved and no large story arc. So, those were pretty quick jobs, but still cool to be a part of the Street Fighter legacy.
Did you
That's
also have to do, besides the lines? Did you also have to do the grunts and the punches, the non
Yeah,
lexical terms as well?
yeah.
Oh, that must have been
I did.
fun.
I did a lot of. I, you know, it's fun, and it's funny. Like it's funnier with Elena because her voice is such a high register and she's so sweet. So you know, it's different from like Sheva, a little bit more realistic, a little bit lower in the range, and you know, badass. And Elena's badass, but she's so high. You know, it's like, you know, it's cute. It gets to be really cute and giggly.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you've had a lot of fun voicing these characters.
I have, I have. I have. There's some other characters on. There's a PC game called Tacoma that I worked on, and this might have been how many, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Could even been longer. I don't know. Maybe 3 4 years ago. Everything is a blur since COVID. I feel like my sense of time is like pre-COVID and post-COVID. So Tacoma, I got to play a doctor that was on board a spaceship that was sort of living in a. There's like a crew on a spaceship that disappeared, and who, you know, through their time capsule clues, you had to figure out what happened on the ship. And I was a doctor who was sort of struggling with anxiety, and I just found it so interesting. And it was one of those jobs where everybody worked and recorded at the same time, and I love those because you get to interact with other actors, and you don't, you know, have to make it up in your head when you're in a booth by yourself. So it was a fun gig. And I was trying to think, you know, a lot of my work on camera for TV and film, you know, there's been a lot of really interesting character roles that I've been able to play. And I'll say one of my best working experiences was working on Baskets, which was a show with Zach Galifianakis, who's famous from like, the Hangover films. And it was on FX, and I think it's still on Hulu if you're streaming. But I got to play, which was really connected to my background. I got to play a circus sort of street rat. You know, he joins our little gang of gypsies, and for like 4 episodes, we just, you know, raise hell, and it was just so much fun to shoot. And working with Zach in that whole production, and everybody was lovely, and just it, you know, the character is so free with herself that, you know, it was like no makeup, no, you know, she was just sort of very real. I remember when I went to the audition, I didn't even put makeup on my face. I rolled out of bed and, you know, didn't even wear a bra, and, you know, ended up booking it. I was like, okay, that worked, you know. Her character's name is Cypher. She was a lot of fun. That comes to mind.
So,
and I have some really cool stuff coming up this year.
Oh wow!
You know, it's so sad. You know, I don't remember when there was a time when you could actually say what you're working on, but everything is an NDA now.
Yeah.
But I do have some TV, some interesting character work coming in the next couple of months. So if you're already following me on Twitter and Instagram,
I am.
You'll definitely, and if, you know, everybody out there is following me, you'll hear, you know, as soon as it starts to air, I'll post.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of you. So these are live action, I'm guessing.
Live action, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking,
television,
yeah, I'm looking forward to
mostly
seeing you
television
on
this year.
more
Yeah.
series and movies. Sometimes I
Yeah.
would
Like,
come
what do
across.
you?
What was that?
How do you? What do you? Where you're at? What is your primary like? Where do you watch your
Oh, okay.
shows?
So we don't have much Hulu. So we have Netflix, Prime Video, and Hotstar. Hotstar is pretty much Disney Plus and HBO Max combined.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah. So we
So
have these three.
something like, so if something came on, because
I
like
watched
here,
Bosch. I watched Bosch on Prime Video, so that's why I saw your cameo there.
yes, Bosch is on Prime Video, and then anything that would be on our network shows, like how would you watch a show like Grey's Anatomy? Do you get
I
that
think it should
somehow?
be
Is that through
available on
streaming?
Hotstar. Has FX, AMC, HBO, Cinemax, and a bunch of other like
Okay.
Indian channels. So yeah, it's just like it's an Indian streaming service where it has a lot of American and British channels over there.
Okay.
But these three are the
All
main.
right.
Netflix is pretty expensive here, but Prime and Hotstar, they are regionalized for Indian pricing.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, a lot of people use Prime and Hotstar over here.
Okay.
Hulu, I don't think
Good to
it's
know.
there here. Yeah,
You
I'm a
don't have
big
Hulu. Okay.
yeah, I'm a big horror fan. I love horror. I pretty much watch one horror movie every day. Uh, Horror was the first genre of like live action media that I was exposed to. The very first movie that I watched was a horror movie. It was back in
Which one?
'96, '7. It was called Grimm. Um, and
Well, wait, Grimm the movie or Grimm TV show?
Grimm the movie, '95 it released,
Okay.
but I saw it in '97
Because
or something.
I love Grimm the TV show. I'm a
Yeah,
big fan.
I've seen that one as well. I thought it was related to the movie, but it was not. So
Okay.
back in the '90s, I'm sure you remember, there was something called Laserdisc (LD).
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, we
I
would.
never owned one,
Oh,
but
okay.
yes, I I remember them, but I never owned one, which is funny.
There was only one place. So my dad imported a Laserdisc player when he moved from Middle East to India, and
Yes.
so there was only one place that rented out Laserdisc movies because it was not common here. So we would watch a lot of Hollywood and British movies on LD, and Grimm was the first movie that I watched, and that was a horror movie. So I got desensitized to horror way back then, and
Wow.
I've been playing Resident Evil since the late '90s, and like, I played Resident Evil when I was like 7 or 8. So I'm completely desensitized to horror.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
not
Yeah, I'm
not a
looking
solid
forward
parenting
to,
decision, but I came out fine.
but I mean, yeah, to each his own. I mean,
Yeah,
not everyone's going to react in the same way
yeah.
to entertainment like that. But I was just bringing up Scream 6 because it looked really good. Have you seen it yet?
Scream
No.
6 has released
Wait,
already?
it's didn't it really? I thought it released this weekend.
Oh, okay. Then
Maybe it's really.
I've seen
So you
5.
won't get it yet.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
definitely check it out.
but it
Yeah.
looks really good. And I think you're going to like it because from what I heard,
Yeah.
it's really gory.
Oh, yeah. So before I conclude the questioning part of the interview, I just want to ask, as someone who's in the beginning stages of voice acting, sometimes when I'm doing lines as Wesker, I don't get the exact voice that I'm going for, even though I'm like fully prepared and I'm like in my recording area and all that. The voice just does not come out right. Um, sometimes I get the voice randomly. Like when I'm on a long call, I get that the texture and the depth, the bass, and all that. But when I'm actually sitting down and trying to prepare for it, trying to do the lines, I don't get the voice, the texture that I'm going for. Have you ever experienced stuff like that when you were doing Sheva, and how did you get over that? Did you do any kind of routine or exercise?
I think a lot of that, and yes, the answer is yes. Because at the time that I was recording, we were all figuring out what the sound would be. You know, it wasn't like they had it in their mind going, okay, she should sound like this. It was like we tried things and we're like, you know, well, you know, maybe have a little bit more of that, a little more of this, a little more of that. So, and once we kind of got into a momentum of it, I think that's when, you know, I was feeling where she is, you know, because it is a thin line between, you know, hearing it and sometimes just being a little off. I think a lot of that is in our heads because you mentioned if you're on a call and you're not trying and you're just, then that's, you know, it's already there, you know. I think we can get into our head sometimes where, you know, when I do vocal auditions that I send in, you know, my first take is usually the best one because I got nothing on it and I'm not overthinking it, you know, where you're like, oh, let me just, you know, go over the lines, and I record that take and I go, well, that's the take I should send, because sometimes after that point you can overcomplicate, overthink, and try to be, you know, perfect about what it is you're hearing. um, so yeah, you know, I've done auditions where if I don't like what I'm hearing, I take a minute and, you know, get off the mic and do something else and, you know, shake it off and get loose again, and then come back, because I mean, it sounds to me from what you said, especially if, you know, if you're doing something else and it just happens naturally, it's there, right? But then you're on the mic and you're trying to get it right. You can kind of mess with your head a little bit.
Yeah. So
But
like
I think it happens to everyone.
when I was doing the line while I was, you know, asking the questions, and when I did the Wesker line on the spot, it came out well, like you said. But
Right,
if I actually
right.
sat down and wanted to do the line in the front of a recorder, then, you know, sometimes, yeah, like you said, I may overthink.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just getting used to telling yourself to just let it flow, you
Yeah.
know. And that's just with practice, you know. I'm not, you know, you know, we know the big names in voiceover, you know,
Mm.
and they are, you know, badasses. They are amazing. You know, I feel like I too am always learning and still growing as a voice artist. So, you know, I get it. I get that. I understand that.
All right. So that concludes the questions for this interview. Now to have some
Oh,
more fun. Um,
yeah. Let's try this.
would you like
Let me
to
see
do
here.
some lines as Sheva?
Yeah.
So
14 years later.
So this
Yep.
scene is at the end of chapter 2 when Sheva is not ready to let Chris go alone.
Right.
So in between there is a Chris line. Are you okay if I just do that one line?
Oh yeah, yeah. Where do you wanna? You're gonna come in after the first
So
line,
after she says
or the
these are my people that are dying here, Chris says,
yeah,
you know, wait,
and then because I don't have Chris's lines here. So is there lines in
yeah, I
between?
know the line.
Oh,
So
is it just the one? Okay.
yeah, and then after that line ends where, you know, she says, you know, now let's get moving. Chris says, copy
Yeah.
that, and that's about it. Yeah. All
Right.
right. I'll give the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Chris, wait! I'm going with you. These are my people that are dying here.
Are you sure about that? A while ago, you were ready to cut and run.
I can't just turn my back and walk away. We're partners. To the end. Now let's get moving.
Copy that. And the next one is not really a scene, but it's an email that Sheva sends to
Yeah.
Pierce Nivens in RE6. So this was when Chris goes missing, and Pierce Nivens is checking with his former associates. So this is the email Sheva sends to Pierce when he was checking up on Chris with her.
Okay. Whenever I'm ready.
Yeah, so you can read it like how Sheva would have sounded like.
Okay. I was very sad to hear of Chris's recent disappearance. He was such a large part of the BSAA, and he was a very important person to me as well. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help. The BSAA West African branch is always here for your support.
Wow. Eva La Dare, everybody. Yeah.
This was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with me, and I hope we get to see you reprise your role as Sheva in a future project. I don't care if it's a remake, a prequel, or a sequel.
I don't care. Let's do it.
Yeah, Sheva needs to come back. Yeah. Thank you so much. I will end the interview here. Hoping to hear more from you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thanks for your input.
Happy anniversary.